Spring break Miami has completely hit rock bottom. When I say rock bottom, I mean the dirt, the gutters, the underground, and I ain't talking about SoundCloud. Listen to me. Miami spring break is not the same. If you were in Miami spring break for either 2018, 19, 2020, 2021, even I'd say 2022, the latest you know, break just won't ever be the same. It fell off. Now I'm going to play a clip here which is going to go over everything and explain how exactly this happened and why it happened. And then after that, I'm going to explain what we as the youth are going to do to fix it.
All right, it is just before 6 p.m. here in South Beach, the busiest weekend historically of all of spring break in the month of March. You can see these railings here. We're on Washington Avenue where it says no parking from Wednesday night through Monday morning. That is for the two busiest weekends of March that they have these restrictions in place, among other things like garage closures, $100 flat rate parking, and we're just 2 blocks west of Ocean Drive. It's a really big truck. They've got an office-like setting in there. They can monitor surveillance cameras as well across the city. And it's situated just off of 10th and Ocean Drive, next to one of the beach entrances, which, as I mentioned, does close at 6. We can see 2 of them closed right now. Seeing all along Ocean Drive, which wasn't a thing years ago. It was for the last year or 2, but back then when it was, at its craziest, that wasn't there. And the street was actually closed off, especially during the pandemic. So a lot of people were invited onto the streets, something the city is no longer doing in an attempt to keep crowds away. So all of Ocean Drive on the west side is completely fenced off. I am standing at the intersection where in 2021, this was completely crowded. I'm talking jam-packed on the sidewalk, the streets. Granted, the streets were closed and that was at 8 p.m. So we'd have to wait another hour if we want to do a complete, accurate matchup. But so far what I'm seeing, I'm going to zoom in down the street, Ocean Drive facing north. There's not that many people, at least compared to 2021. Let's go on.
And no, man, it's a cold world we live in. Miami spring break essentially is shut down, at least what I'll say the daytime part of it, and we'll get into that. But let's just start with the first point. Miami spring break has not been the same since early, I want to say 2020. So I'd say, right after COVID, even during COVID, it was insanity. 2019, 2021, 2022. I mean, even 2023 was pretty crazy, but I think that's when they kind of first started initiating all these rules. But if we're being real, it's not going to go back to the old ways. They have DUI checkpoints. They got everything set up to make sure that motherfuckers is not wilding like the way they was before. They don't want nobody out here causing problems, rummaging the streets. They got residential neighborhoods attached to Miami South Beach that they don't want destroyed by these high school hoodlums, as they call them, coming in, underage drinking, doing all type of drugs, doing all type of crazy stuff that we cannot control. But at the end of the day, listen, as an obviously over the age adult, I don't think that the, responsible wanting to party adults should be penalized by them, but it is what it is. That's the world we live in. Now, let's be real. What has the alternative become? A lot of people are just going up the road to Fort Lauderdale instead, because Fort Lauderdale is a lot looser on the rules. Fort Lauderdale Beach still has some of the same strictness, but they don't have, the DUI checkpoints, and they are shutting down the streets as strictly. Fort Lauderdale has a little bit more of an open policy and is a little bit lighter on, how they're handling their spring break up there. Still somewhat stricter than before, but as someone who's been to both recently, I was in Fort Lauderdale 2 years ago, and then I was in Miami, I think a year ago. I'm losing track of the years these days. I mean, every time I go to Miami, it's a doozy. I'm located in Tampa, so it's easy for me to just drive over there. I don't have to fly into Florida. Already a Florida native. So, with that being said, I think it's just crazy that this is what's happened to spring break, what used to be one of the, top festivities of Florida. When people think of Florida, they think of Miami spring break. At least people, in, my age bracket, Gen Z, whatever you want to call us, Miami spring break is like a staple. It's like the founding father of what we do as a generation. But another location people have turned to is Houston. I've heard a lot of things about people going to Houston now. I've heard Houston's a new hotspot. We saw AMP was there doing a huge pool party thing. Houston has always been, a magic city. Houston has always been fun. James Harden was at those strip clubs going crazy with Lil Baby in the prime days. Houston's always been lit. And I've seen a lot of people recently, especially this last spring break that just passed, were posting and saying, hey, I'm going to Houston, I'm going to Houston, I'm going to Houston. And even some people coming to the city. I'm in Tampa. I noticed Tampa was getting a lot of people coming from different areas to visit because people just heard Miami was too hectic, too expensive, and they weren't being able to get the bang for their buck. Now, as far as the nightlife, that's untouchable. The Miami police can do everything they want, but the Miami nightlife is untouchable. Nothing's stopping it. And I'm talking about the main clubs. You know, you got Club Space and that club across the street. I'm blanking on the name. What's it called again? Club 11, I think it is. And all those major clubs, and then the strip of clubs on the beach, you know, Clevelanders, all that stuff. That stuff's untouchable. They're going to be lit no matter what. They're always going to cause crowds at night because people don't need to drive at night. People will either just walk to the club or Uber. But during the day litness where people are blocking off the whole street, unfortunately, I think those days are over, man. It is what it is. You know, maybe they'll loosen up after, you know, they realize they're losing a bunch of money from stopping people on these spring breaks. Although they were kind of destroying the city, I'm sure they were making billions of dollars. That's why they were letting it slide for so many years. But, you know, what can we do, you know, as a youth to fix this? I think in reality, the simple answer is just, you know, take the party somewhere else and show them that they can't stop the party. And for one, the people that are over the age and aren't idiots, let's just party a little bit more responsibly and not destroy people's, you know, nice neighborhoods. Maybe they won't shut down spring break, but either way, they're going to do whatever they want to do. I'm still going to party for spring break. You know, I'm getting to the point where I'm almost at unk status, you know, still in my early 20s, mid 20s, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, you know, the party must end at some point. So you got to live it up while you're young, I guess, or that's what they say. So we'll see what happens. Will Miami spring break get any better? Is Miami going to do anything to, you know, bring back that spark and joy and luster it had back in the day? I don't know if they can. I really think that these other places are kind of taking the shine. And I think people are going to start, you know, trying out different places, even in Florida, to, you know, try to something new. I mean, a lot of people that I talked to in Tampa Bay this year were saying, hey, yeah, we went to Miami last year, but it was too expensive this year. And we heard they're shutting everything down, DUI checkpoints. Nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants to deal with the Miami-Dade County police. They're some of the most, you know, corrupt and strict police in the entire United States of America. Nobody won't smoke with them. Promise you. Well, you know, with all that being said, I'm just hoping that spring break is revived. I'm still going to Miami. I don't really care, but maybe not for spring break. Just another time. But I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in on this topic. I thought it was pretty interesting. And that's it. It's your boy, one and only Aaron. We grind until 1K subs. We out this bitch.